destructive. I mean, we're ruining the infrastructure of this country as it is. You know, the dollar is being thrown to the wind by those who created it, because out of that havoc and chaos, more power, more centralization, and more control will fall into their laps.
Right.
So that's why we need to understand Agenda 21. Let me talk about the 3 E's. The 3 E's is equity. Now, equity is about using sociology and the law to create the direction of the new man. As to the change in the law, specifically what it means is we go from a system of equal justice. Remember, that's what was talked about in the Declaration of Independence, equal justice, where the justice is the same for everybody. And the justice system was built upon certain principles that never went away. And the core principle for that was the idea that government is limited because the human being, each human being, possessed certain unalienable rights granted to us by our Creator. Now, that was the true magic of the American founding. That is why the Declaration of Independence has always been known as mankind's greatest achievement. So this first E is the equity E, and it has to do with changing our system of justice from a system of equal justice predicated upon the idea that every human being has unalienable rights to life, liberty, and property, and that government can never expand itself so as to interfere with our unalienable rights. Well, today, you can go to any law school in this country, and you will be taught the principles of social justice. Not equal justice, social justice. Now, social justice works on an entirely different basis. The theory of social justice is that common good can only be pursued if justice is handed out differently to different groups at different times under different circumstances, all for the purpose of promoting common good. Now, of course, who decides what that common good is? Well, it's who's ever ruling decides what the common good is.
Well, we know it could be someone like Cass Sunstein who says that animals have equal or more equal rights than a human in a court of law.
Well, sure. But you know, if you go to the United Nations and you read their Declaration of Human Rights and you read it through and you get down to Article 29, Section 3, where it says that all the rights and freedoms granted herein can be changed, modified, withdrawn, or nullified if the leaders of the UN determine that to be. Right in their own declaration, they define human rights to be animal rights. It's whatever I give it to you, whatever I give to you, whenever I give it to you. And that is the system of justice that is being taught to every lawyer coming out of law schools these days. That is how the ABA, the American Bar Association, organizes itself. In fact, the ABA is an NGO. NGOs are non-governmental organizations that are accredited by the United Nations for purposes of implementing Agenda 21. The ABA is one of them. So it's no wonder lawyers today don't... I went to law school. You never read the Constitution. You don't know what the Declaration says. You're being taught a system of social justice that is designed to lead us to this new order where human beings are treated as animals. Now, the second E is economy. Economy has two points. The first is for the redistribution of America's wealth within and between nations. Now, this accounts for why it is that our trade policy has fallen away from constitutional expectations and why it is that our manufacturing has moved offshore. Because the effort to create this equalization within and between nations has been in effect for a long while, and they've made a lot of progress. America hasn't fallen yet, but we're on the verge. We're on the verge because trade policy has been taken away from Congress. Congress has given it to the World Trade Organization. Congress has given it away in multilateral trade pacts that leave Americans bare. Now, the second element of the economy E of Agenda 21 is the institution of public-private partnership to the exclusion of free enterprise. Now, America wasn't built as a capitalist country. The term capitalism never came into existence until it was first used by Karl Marx. Capitalism, if you go to the dictionary, the 1988 unabridged Webster's Dictionary is what I use, and in there it says that capitalism is a form of economics originally evidencing signs of free enterprise, but in its later stages has become partnerships between business and government. Well, that is what Agenda 21 calls for, is a partnership between business and government, public-private partnerships to be the new mode of economics here, there, and all around the world. So we've looked at the equity E, we've looked at the environment E, and you say, well, nobody go for that stuff, you know, as an American. Nobody wants to change our system of justice and change our system of economics so that we have a communist system of justice and a fascist system of economics. How much worse can you get? Well, the way
they'll find out.
Okay.
It's like every country is trying to outdo each other to see who could sink to the bottom first.
Well, I think that's right. But the way the American people have been sold this bill of goods is via the third E, and that's called environment. And by environment, they don't mean government's legitimate role in policing the environment. There is a legitimate government role. The government ought to make sure the public air supply stays clean. And the government ought to make sure that the public water supply stays clean.
And not fluoridated.
And not fluoridated, precisely. And finally, the government needs to make sure that I don't pollute your property. But what you do with your property, so long as you're not poisoning the air or poisoning the water, is your business, simple and clear. Now, if you own a forest on a hillside, you're the last person to want to clear cut that hillside. Because if you do, you're going to erode your soils that are the basis for your next crop. So that's why private property works, because a private property owner takes a long-range view. When the government comes in and tells timber owners they can't cut trees because the government's worried about erosion, that's baloney. The government is doing it simply to gain control over the resources, force the people off their land, and force them into the 22nd floor of a high-rise in a smart growth community. The environment is being used by the government as a charade to steal America from Americans. But the American public is still buying the green message, which was so exciting with the Super Bowl this Sunday, seeing that Volvo ad that made a lot of fun of the green movement.
Yeah, it was an Audi ad, actually, but yes, you're right.
Yeah, the Audi ad. We need to make a lot more fun of the green movement because it is not motivated by good intentions. It is motivated to advance the Agenda 21 takedown of America, the transformation of our economic system, and the complete remapping of our judicial system to be in accordance with the dawning New World Order. When we understand Agenda 21, you understand the New World Order.
Doc, I haven't heard from you in a while. You have anything to add?
He's laying it out piece by piece, just exactly as I would have. The only thing that I can think to add is that about, I'd say, 15 years ago, they actually took the hand away from schools to individually pick out what they were going to be teaching children, and took UNESCO plans that basically are Agenda 21 broken down into textbooks so that our children can actually pressure us as adults and shame us into participating, or in a worst case scenario, report their parents for resisting Agenda 21, I guess, down the road. But that's the kind of collectivist, reductionist thinking that our children are being taught now. And but yeah.
Well, I think you're exactly right, and I don't want to leave out the educational component of Agenda 21, because if anyone ever saw the television movie series called America with a K back in the 80s, starred Chris Christopherson, and it was a story about how the United Nations and the still existent Soviet Union came in and overthrew America overnight. And the point of the movie was how the education